Welcome, everyone. Have you had your coffee? Is everybody up? Good, good. Well, welcome to the How to Build a Durable Brand panel talk powered by Nespresso. I'm Ashley Janelle Wadje, and I'm the founder of Young the Agency, an agency where we produce storytelling content for brands in collaboration with young talents. Today, I have lovely guests with me today who will be joining me in a conversation where we will explore the strategies for building sustainable growth for your brand, but also how to maintain relevance in today's market. And if you know my talks, you know that I always like to know who I have in the audience, so we're going to play a little game. Raise your hands if you have your own brand. It could be a fashion brand, beauty, whatever it is. Raise your hands. Higher, yes, higher. Okay. Not many, but that's okay. Raise your hands if you're thinking about starting a brand. Ooh, that's more. That's good. And raise your hands if you're still studying. Okay. Okay. Well, once again, welcome and help me also welcome my guests. Next to me, I have Borre Akersdijk, Ida Petersson, and Remco van Velden. Welcome. Can you please help me give them applause? How are you guys feeling today? Good. Are we sure? Yeah? Well, Ida, you came yesterday, right? Did you arrive yesterday in Amsterdam?
I arrived on Wednesday, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to arrive for the Wandler presentation. I don't know if any of you went, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And how is it to be here in Amsterdam during Amsterdam Fashion Week?
It's amazing because actually also I haven't been here for 15 years, and you guys
wow.
know this because you're from Amsterdam, or most of you are. But it's changed a lot, and it's really nice to feel the energy. I think particularly in here because I also had the pleasure of being one of the judges on the hub, and one of the things I enjoy more than anything is new talent. In a very selfish way, it gives me a lot of energy to get that unbroken creativity.
Oh, amazing. Well, before we get into the conversation, would you briefly like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. That's when I get more shy. So I'm originally Swedish, but I've been in London for the last 27 years. And I spent 24 years of those in buying. So I started my career at Harvey Nichols, and then I moved on to Net-a-Porter. And then I was at Browns as the buying director, where I then finished that and started a new chapter in December last year. And I'm a co-owner and co-founder of a creative brand agency that sits between the US and London. And I'm very lucky to have a great, wonderful business kick-ass woman on my side. She's not here. She's actually in China doing a tour of styling, etc. So I also felt like I cheated when I started this agency because she's got 20 years experience of standing on her own feet.
Cool. So she's in China, you're in here in Amsterdam. Super cool.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah. Borre, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course. I'm Borre. I think most of all, I've been a textile lover or somebody that really enjoys materials. So everything from the one that I started designing, I started from the yarn and the fiber. In the last decade, I built a textile company called ByBorre. We had loads of showcases in an own brand, but most of all, a lot of collaborations. And in the last 2 years, we really focused with the company on translating our whole supply chain and make it digital, because I saw that there was so much opportunity in the industry, and I created a way to use it myself. But to move forward, we really thought like, hey, how can we open source that? How can we digitize that? How can we make sure that everybody can get hands on responsible textiles and really work with them? And at the moment, we're starting a very exciting new endeavor next to that to get some energy into it.
Do you mind giving us a little bit of sneak?
Well, everybody has to be patient.
Well, Borre, you mentioned it already, so you have to give us something.
Well, no. Sometimes it's like, sometimes it's good to wait, but
okay.
A lot happening.
Okay, everybody just follow Borre, and then we just know whatever we will launch very soon, right? Okay, Remco, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Remco. I'm the co-founder of Wild Animals. That's a label that I run with Rob van Mierlo. And it's a product label based upon his paintings of animals. And it ranges from, we do all sorts of products. We don't really pick one type of product, but it goes from ceramics to interior objects, but also a lot of wearable products. So we do sell to quite some fashion retail. But we see ourselves as a product label. So we love textiles, but we don't do seasonal collections. We just develop products in our own pace. And this week we opened our new studio. That was part of the Amsterdam Fashion Week. So we moved to a studio in Amsterdam North, where we will host some future events when we do product launches.
Oh, congratulations with the launch of the studio.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, Ida, you already mentioned it in the beginning, but you're part of one of the jury members for the talent support program powered by Nespresso. What did you notice about the Dutch brands here in the hub when you walked around yesterday?
I mean, first of all, and I mentioned it, is the energy and the excitement of them coming together. But I think also the other part that I loved was how many designers spoke about collaboration and doing things together. And I think that to me is something that I cannot stress enough, like the power of your network and the power of the people that are there for you. And I think when I sort of, because I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot in my life and in my career, sometimes too much. 160 days tends to take it a little bit too far, especially if you have a husband. But the one thing that kind of I see, and particularly in the off-schedule cities, so to say, which obviously Amsterdam is one of them, doesn't mean that the energy is not as fabulous and sometimes even more energetic than you have in the sort of official four cities. But where I feel it the strongest is when you see how people support each other and introduce you to other brands or friends, etc. And I think I definitely felt that very strongly yesterday, and it made me very happy because I think that's a very important part of like how our industry, particularly because the reality is as well, as I'm sure most of you are aware, even if it's not in your personal brand life, but it is not a great time in the world. It's very volatile. The fashion industry in itself is very volatile, and it's tough times. So in that sense, that camaraderie and coming together and holding each other is more important than ever.
I love that you said collaboration, because that's definitely something I think about when I think about the Netherlands first and foremost, but also brands. Borre, also with you, I know that ByBorre started as a textile company, but you also once started as a brand, just like the brands here in the hub. Where did the interest come from?
Well, I think from my perspective, I was always working on materials. So I was intrigued by textiles, something that you have around you your whole life from the moment you start. And I was always creating textiles and creating materials, and being next to the machines and getting new things out of it. I really wanted to push the boundaries. And in the beginning, I was seen more as a sort of a textile artist, and I was like, oh, that's so weird but fun, and like, oh, can you do a one-off here or something there? And then I realized that I almost had to create something that people understood, and that I had to go closer to the things that we wear, use, and fashion and clothing was the closest to everybody's understanding. So the showcases became a brand. And while building that brand over season, for me, it was showcases to show what my abilities were. And I think when we reached the point where other brands came to us as, hey, can you develop textiles for us? Or can we do something together? I saw that my own showcase was not always necessary. And ByBorre, to really add value in the world, the value was built into the textile. And for instance, now, like we don't launch our own collections, but this coming month we launch a new collection with Rafa, and they developed it themselves on our platform. We do something with Rip Curl, but they developed something for their community, and we support that it is transparent. So I think collaboration for me is like giving what I can do best and open it up to what others can do best, and others that have amazing communities that I don't have. So like I believe that that's for in general the future.
I was very intrigued when I read that you have a textile company. When we had our conversation before, I said, aren't there old people in textile industry? And you were like, well, actually, I'm not that young. But
Yeah, ask my girlfriend. So like, she's always like, oh, you're turning really old now, huh? Yeah, she's there. No, true. Like textile in the Netherlands has been like the core of the textile industry, and we had an amazing textile industry in the Netherlands, but after the 70s and the 80s, like it just died, and now it is only the niche and little things, and there's beautiful things coming again, and I think there's opportunities again with digitization, but textile is, if you go in the world, if you go to Asia or to certain places, it's one of the most innovative places. And so there is a lot happening, but you're right that like it has a little bit of a dusty, or in Dutch we say stoffig, what is very logic, of course, because that's the word for the for the textile industry. So no, but there's, I think, a lot of young people, like, well, I think the interest is there in fashion, but it starts with the materials.
that's a really beautiful, way to actually connect as well with people, with the materials. Like you said in the beginning, we have materials all over us, and we actually don't even realize it or think about it.
Yeah, I think everybody thought this morning, oh, what am I going to wear? How am I going to look? How am I going to portray my image?
Yeah.
But nobody was like, which fiber count am I wearing? Do I want some cotton feel today or some wool? And maybe like, because where that actually gives the function, and that actually like makes it good or bad for the things that you're doing, but it's logic, that's not branded. So I think but it's interesting to start to understand that, like, especially when you have a brand or you want to build a brand, it's like, what do I really want to, what for added value do I want to give? Not only what image, but also why am I making it? Who is making it with me? And what is the content of it? And how can I share that?
Beautiful. Remco, I think that's also one of your perspectives, right? Because together with your partner, Rob, you have Wild Animals. And I know that Wild Animals more than a fashion brand. So can you also talk or take us through Wild Animals? As I also know that for you, it's not just about the clothes, it's about the process, it's about the story behind it. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Well, my background is a creative background as well. But my role nowadays in the company is I'm not the designer. So Rob is the artist, and everything is based upon his work. And I try to create a durable brand with him. So my role is more product development and also the commercial part. But I think with Rob, he started painting these animals over 15 years ago. It was part of his graduation project, and it was he never expected it to become this, of course. It was a chapter of his graduation, but when he painted these animals in this technique, immediately everybody, well, first the teachers, of course, but then the other students, everybody was like really amazed from the beginning. When they appeared on paper, everybody was like, whoa, it was so strong and unique in a way. And I think that's really special when you create something that resonates worldwide, actually, because he self-published his book when he graduated, and he thought it was normal that Marc Jacobs, Colette, everybody started to buy the book very fast. And in year 3, Marnie asked him for an artist collaboration, and in that sense, he's already doing this for 15 years. So it is about that process of, almost like just painting. And my role together with Rob now is, okay, how can we translate these paintings in other materials? How can we build this world? We experiment with all sorts of techniques. It can be anything, and that's really a process. And then products appear sometimes out of the blue. We go to a production facility. So, whoa, what is this machine? Or a craftsman. oh, do you do hand knitting? Oh, can we do? And then it takes time. Sometimes things don't work out, but sometimes we really create new core pieces of the brand. So, for example, the book, we're already selling that for 15 years. But now we also have like a certain knitwear that's just like, it's not a seasonal product. I mean, it's not something that you wear now, but it is a product. When somebody buys it, they buy a piece of art actually, and they keep it forever. They will never throw it away. Yeah. And it can also be, it doesn't need to be sometimes a super expensive thing. It can also be a calendar. You know, when the calendar is beautiful, you keep it in your house.
Yeah, just like the book, like you said, it can be like an art piece, but you also said something, it takes time, right? And I think with taking time, that's where durability also comes in. But we also live in a time, in a generation where we don't have the patience, and it feels like we don't have the time. So how do you then
Why?
build? Well, that's a good question. Why?
Yeah, no, I think that, of course, that also the commercial part kicks in, but you're part of a system, right? And the fashion system is built on fast things, you know, season, new. But in our case now, we do work with a fashion sales agency, and they are 4 times a year in Paris. All international buyers come in. But the last 2 seasons, we didn't show anything new, actually. We just had the same collection there, the same knitwear, well, and few new things. And in the beginning, the buyers came in and they were like, well, "I've seen this. I've had this in my. Oh yeah, but what did you have in your shop? Yeah, I had that knitwear and that T-shirt. Did it sell well? Yeah, really good. Maybe you should try the crocodile now then, or maybe try and now it starts to work with these clients, like, and we never put our products in sale, so we also say to them, just keep, and some of them I think, that you challenge them, but for them, our brand also becomes a more sustainable, profitable proposal, because they sell full price and they, but it takes time. I mean, in our case, everything takes a lot of time.
No, but I think this is such a smart and strong strategy, because you're challenging people to think differently. And then I'll look at Ida, because you are a former buyer. Have you worked with brands that had this approach? And if not, what is your, how, like, now that Remco said this, how do you feel about this?
I mean, I feel very happy about it, actually, because I agree with you. And I think the sad reality is that you are right as well. But it really scares me how quickly the wheel spins today, particularly for young brand, because they have less power than the big guys. The big guys can dictate a lot, and the young guys are usually the ones that maybe have trouble, getting they like not the back end of the production line, which means that they deliver late, and then they pretty much come in. They have 4 weeks to sell, and everything goes on markdown, and then it starts again. And also just the fact that most of these companies are very small as well. So it's a 1-man band or 2-man band, or and that puts a lot of pressure in terms of also being constantly cutting through the noise, because there's so much out there. So I think when someone is brave enough, and I think this is something just in general when it comes to building a durable brand, is to actually not look too much on other people, to be very strong. I mean, we talked about this inside, and I'm actually sad because these guys had some very good points. I wish we could have recorded that part of the conversation, but each brand offers something different, and if that authenticity, the UPS, or whatever it is, the DNA of the brand, that's also something from a buyer's perspective that we look for. So when someone dares to be different, it's really interesting. Then it's maybe not for every retailer, but I think that also goes back to a point I think is extremely important. And I love that you said that your retailers actually respect that you don't have markdown, because I think this also goes into like the power of saying no, and not just saying yes to everything. Because in the partnership, and as if you go out in the world, if you're already out in the world as a brand, there will be people, hopefully coming at you and offering you things, but it might not always be what you actually need for longevity, and that goes back to that durability. You can burn very quick, and then Icarus, like, you fall down if you're not careful. And I think by finding the partners and having that, taking time, that's actually how you stay in power, in a sense. And maybe that means that you're not going to be a millionaire tomorrow, but I think that's also okay. You can have different. It's also okay to want to be a millionaire tomorrow, but then maybe you also need to be okay with actually selling off your brand and then moving away and not thinking about it. And if it is a love project, then definitely these two guys have love projects. Then taking time is super important, and I cannot stress that enough. And having the confidence to believe in your proposition.
No, I agree. My personal and favorite slogan is impact over popularity. And that's literally what you just also said. It's about making the impact rather than the popularity, where you have many sales but no impact, but you might have the money but maybe not even be happy where your brand is standing today. So that's a really good advice also for the audience, I think. So you're grabbing the mic. You want to say something? Do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, a few things, but first of all, if you want to be a millionaire, you should not be in this business. At least, I don't believe, because then you're doing it for the wrong things. And I think if a lot of points I totally agree on. But what I find especially very important is when you're building a brand, because you said the big brands have a lot to say, and I understand it from the point of where you're from the retailers and from a buyer's perspective, because they dictate. But if you look at the power that young communities have and the young creators, all big brands have no way how to grasp that. And that's where the real love and the real change is. The change is with the young communities. It is with community in general. So I think as a young creative, if you understand where you want to go, if you have a North Star and it doesn't really matter if things go wrong, but you keep on following that path and you have the patience to go there, I think it is more powerful than any season over season brand, because it doesn't have values that a community can hold on to. And I think that for me is the most interesting. I buy literally nothing if it's not now linked to a community that I respect. It doesn't matter and that's not, I don't do that on purpose. I just realized that in the last years, when I looked at everything that I bought, if it were big brands, they found the right community that triggered me. Or it were communities that were doing something. And I think that maybe a lot of young people, I would not advise, if you have a sort of start a brand. I would say find somebody or a brand that you really like to work there and think that they do everything right, and then figure out that they definitely don't, so that you then learn from it. But don't underestimate the power of starting. Don't underestimate the power of your own little community, because that's where I believe the bigger brands are lost there.
Well, can I add something? I think it's really, really good, Borre. But yeah, community, I had to think about the word relationships. So when you have the brand, or when you have the product or the service or whatever makes you unique, that's of course the core. But then it's also about how you create your relationships around that product or that brand that you have. And I mean relationships with your production partners, for example, but also to your community. So how do you talk to your customers? And when that's bad or when that's off, then it can become also really difficult to become a durable brand. Simple things like customer service, or just when people are fan of Rob's work and they buy something and they don't get served well, because you're a small company, or because you don't think about it, or just you're not the person who's good at it, then it can also can become quite tough. So I think that part, creating the relationships, even within your own team, How is the culture inside of your company? How do you relate to people? How do you talk to people? How do you treat them? And to create really your own identity there. It's also very important to become a durable brand. So what are your values actually? And what is the feeling that you want when other people see your product, but then some people they don't know with wild animals. They just love the painting. They don't even know Rob van Mierlo maybe. But you have a lot of these customers. But the core customers, that's so important. Who do you want to reach? What is our culture? And in our case, we want to be a bit off and arty and quirky and weird because that's Rob. And you will find that in all stupid little hang tags and weird packaging, and even the way how we, stuff that we put on our website, or sometimes how we talk to our customers. And that's why we love to do this, because that's our voice, and that's what we want to bring across to the people who love our brand.
Can I say something? I love what both of you guys are saying, and it's actually something that's extremely important. It is the patience. But also the less sexy stuff. I cannot stress, and it's something that breaks my heart every time, but in the 24 years I was in buying, I've seen so many insanely talented people that had huge communities. People loved them. They had all the support from the editors, from the muses, from industries beyond fashion, and they still fail because they were trying to run before they were walking. And I think, you can have the best idea and the most beautiful clothes, shoes, bags, whatever world you're in makeup, art, but if you don't actually stop to think and learn and actually take the time to build this infrastructure, then you very, very likely, particularly today, because people, sadly, and this goes back to your point, that where, everything's very fast, people don't have the same patience anymore. So if you stumble, people don't always lift you up. If you're lucky, yes, but it also is a lot harder. So by doing that research, and I think also sometimes, because I see this a lot, where people they graduate and they're so eager and they jump out and they're like, I'm starting my own brand, but actually working for someone like what you said, and I know you did before you started yours. I think you learn a lot, not just about, is this brand actually what I want to do, but really understanding how a bigger organization works and what you can take from that and apply that to your world. And I think, I've seen whether that is like, talking to Kim Jones or Matthew or, Natasha Remy. I sat on a panel in Copenhagen with Natasha Remy Levy, and she was saying to all the young students that were sitting in front of her, she was like, please, please, please take at least 1 year and go and work somewhere and just like understand how it works in reality. Because what you think it is, like all of that skills, and to your point also, you get connections a lot of times, right? So you might form a partnership with that amazing factory that then loves you for you. And this is what I've seen a lot with some of the designers that are very successful and have had long careers, is that they built those relationships and they were like, oh, hey, that guy, he's such a nice guy. And then when he comes with his tiny little collection, was like, okay, we'll squeeze you in.
Yeah,
we love you, It's like dating, right? You find the people that will love you for you. And sometimes that means not going for a big name. Like, it's nothing that scares me as much when someone comes to me and I have a new brand, they're like, oh, I produce in the same factory as Chanel. And I think, the F word, I'm like, shit, that's the S word. But it literally, it's like you're going to be at the bottom of the bottom feed. Whereas I know some super clever people, like even like a shoe designer, Jennifer Shamandi, that basically learned Italian. She spent she was like, this is the factory that can produce my idea. And she had this, she wanted to do this needle in the heel that was like super complicated. And she researched. And then this factory was like, no. And she was like, okay. So she spent a year learning Italian, and now they're like best friends. She's been in business for like 10 years. And is super successful, and she's got her own store in London, And to me, that's such a wonderful story because she really persisted and she worked her butt off.
Yeah, I love that. Yesterday, I also had a talk with René van Wijngaarden, and it was also with Kika Buurman, the CEO of Nespresso, and we also spoke about taking your time. It was really about valuing the process. And I love that all of you are actually saying the same, taking the time, valuing the process. Renee also mentioned that she actually also works with a lot of local talent. So she collaborated with Nespresso during Amsterdam Fashion Week and also used the cups, the coffee cups of Nespresso to produce jewelry, the aluminium, and made jewelry of it. And that was only possible that by doing that with a local like a local company here in the Netherlands, because the bigger ones would not do that. And if you go to the bigger ones, yes, you have the name, but like you said, you will be on the bottom of the list. So that's really good also that I'm hearing this here. And yesterday we also spoke about that. Borre, with your textile company, I can also imagine that you guys experiment a lot. Can you take us through the process? But also, how do you do that when a brand comes to you, they want to experience, they also want the fabric, but maybe the intentions are not right?
Wow, I have so many stories for all of these. Because there's some of the biggest brands that came to me from the beginning, like that wanted to do something with me, and and it was I think 2011 or something, where let's just name them, where Moncler came to me, and it was the head, like the main person that now like set up the other brand. Well, it doesn't matter. And they like, oh, we love what you do. Can we make a jacket? And I like busted my ass and like opened my supply chain and I just asked for, I think it was like, and imagine took me weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think I asked 1,100 euros, and that was the cost of the yarns, the cost of the machine hours and stuff like. And I remember presenting it to him like on Paris Fashion Week, and luckily I had a very good friend of mine that is a photographer that we shot pictures that morning with, like, she arranged the model and she was shooting for big names. So I have amazing pictures of it. And I made a whole concept that was for back then their 50th anniversary. And the whole story of Moncler was in there. And I remember the guy putting it on, all layers taken out. He's like, "Whoa, I've never seen something like that before." And I never heard anything from him again. And I was like, fuck him. I was like, dude, like all that time. So I bumped into him 7 years later on the front row of the show of Virgil. And he jumped up and he's like, "Hey, Borre, like, how you doing? I see so many amazing things from you in your collection."
I was still mad from 7 years ago.
I was not mad. I was not even mad. I was like, whoa, I'm glad that you still remember, because what you did not remember is to call me back when you took my jacket and that I worked for. Yeah. And I thanked him for it. And I was like, but the only thing was like that person, it was a single person that made me not want to work for Moncler anymore. Where years later, I had good relationships with Moncler and things happened again. So for me, it was like single persons can make or break certain things. And I think that is also what we're talking about, like the patience to get access from people. Because I have a handful of people that made my career or that opened the door.
Yeah, I think that, well, time and patience, that's definitely 100% true, but it's also, I think you also need to be the person for it to run a brand, you know, or you should find a person to do it with you, because you have the design, but I know Borre already also for a very long time from school, but he has always been, besides doing great design work, he's a great presenter and a PR guy, and, you know, that's also really part of the success, you know, being that guy. And in our case, I am the guy who's constantly pushing in the company, you know. So it's like Rob is, that's my role, you know. And and then Rob is crazy because he's just a crazy artist. But I'm crazy on the other level. I just go constantly production, sales, and you get 100 no's, and I don't care. The next one, you know, it's like you need to have that as well to become that brand. And then it also really comes to personality and to how do you call it, perseverance? Is that the word? Just to continue, because I mean, if I wouldn't believe in it, I'm not that guy who would do it for something that I don't believe in. No, but we have a very strong belief in what we're doing, and that's why we just go. You know, it's like all in constantly.
And I think that's also important with your partner, but also when collaborating with other companies. That's also something that Kika and René mentioned yesterday, that the because when I first heard Nespresso was working with one-off, I said, how is a coffee company working with a fashion brand? Like, I couldn't imagine how that would come together. But actually what they said yesterday is that their values were both aligned and their vision. So then it doesn't matter what the outcome is, but if the partners are aligned, then whatever comes out of it would work, right? And that's, I think, what I'm also hearing here from all three of you. Well, to close this talk, I have a question for each one of you. And I'll start with Borre. What advice, you actually said it already, but I'll ask you again. What advice would you give to anybody that thinks of starting a brand?
Yeah, well, yeah, then I will repeat myself. Like, I think it's, well, I think it is, when you have, if the urge comes from something that you miss, or the urge comes from where your passion is at, and that you love so much that you think like, I want to share this and I want to keep on sharing this, I think you should follow it. The only thing is, what I don't believe is that everybody has that urge. I think a lot of people want to start a brand because they want the shine that other people have. They want the recognition that other people have. But you're not other people, you're you. So for me, there's only one reason to start a brand, and that's that you have an intrinsic motivation in anything. That can be aesthetics, that can be color, that can be, in my case, material. And you can follow that passion. And I believe that the first step is to look at somebody that you look up to and that you think is doing that. Do everything in your power to join that company. And if you are that person that loves that, and that company loves that, you're gonna get a spot. Guaranteed. Just keep on knocking on the door, because everybody needs free help. So if you're an intern, or like, and if you don't have like the money, like also like, just say it. I don't have the money to intern free the whole week. Can I do 2 days? I need the rest of the week to work, or I need the rest. Like, I've done that so many times. If I couldn't pay somebody, but like we figured it out. And I think that for me is the learning, and then you see, and I think for me, I worked for 3 years for a trend forecaster in Paris. I did actually knock on the door of Balenciaga a lot of times, and I didn't get in because I could not speak French. So it maybe doesn't always work, like side note. But for me, I loved what they were doing, but most of all, I learned how I did not want to treat people, and how I did not want to work with companies. So, and that immediately from the get-go made me a sort of, how do I want to do it? How do I want to have lunch with my crew? How do I want to work with clients and be open for everybody? So like, I think that's would be my approach. But at least don't do it because you like what others do.
Yeah. Well, good advice. Thank you, Borre. Remco, how important is it to have a strategy when you want to build a durable brand?
Okay, yeah. Well, in our case, I mean, I had quite some experience already in product development, sales, etc. So for us, that strategy was not so important, because we already had kind of, that was already embedded in what we were doing. But it was more like writing. The strategy was, what is Wild Animals, and who are we, and who do we want to be? So we wrote this. It took months. I think the first 4 months it was only me and Rob talking, because Rob was also very scared to start doing this with me, because we were good friends already, and he is very protective on his work. So we had to write and then come to these core sentences where we stand for. and how that translate into our products, objects, the way we work, etc. So that is our strategy. And now, 5 years later, we get more and more close actually to the initial thoughts. But strategy, I mean, there are all sorts, you know, so many strategies about branding and etc. But in the end, it all comes to creating something and testing it actually. There is this, I think, famous article called 100 True Fans or something. I don't know if you probably you know it, but it's like you need to find 100 true fans. You need to find 100 true fans who buy your product. And from there you can, because when you, okay, how do I start a brand? It can be super overwhelming because you look up to the big brands, but they all started with nothing. They started with nothing, with a sketch. And then translating it into a product and then finding your fans, people. And then from there, when you have 100 true fans who buy your product, you can run a business. You know, so that's, and then from there, then when it's really good, then you get maybe 1,000 fans. And maybe that's enough for your brand. It depends on the product. But when it, you know, then it can really explode. So the strategy you need, like, okay, maybe but I would say you should just create something, test it.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the people here are creatives, right? We're not we're not talking about a sustainable brand like a supermarket or something, or like a payment provider. There's also brands, but we're talking about creative business. So create something, make it better, test it, okay, wear it or use it, and then, oh no, okay, and then, yeah.
Yeah, and what I also heard is knowing what you stand for, who you are, and what you want people to see and know from your brand, right? Well, thank you, Remco. That's also a really beautiful tip. And Ida, my question for you is, where do you think the future of fashion is heading?
Future of fashion, what?
Yeah, where do you think the future of fashion is heading?
Nah. Do you want the morbid version or the happier version?
The happy.
No, jokes version. I think, first of all brands need the Remco, because that passion and love for the brands is amazing to see. And also knowing that that's how you, you know, that partnership, having that counterpart is really important. But back to your question. So future of fashion, I mean, there is many ways to look at it. I think what I hope for, and I think this is the angle I will take, what I hope for, and this goes a little bit back to what Borre spoke about, is that we will circle back to somewhere where, you know, and actually Remco as well, that the speed and that reflection comes back, and that the creativity can shine through. Because I think where we are now, we're at this cusp of, you know, the industry, so much has changed, the world has changed, in some ways positive, in some ways negative. You know, when I when I started my career, we were like, you know, standing by the fax machine, faxing the orders through, right? Most of you probably don't even know what a fax machine is, but you know, we went to market, and everyone had time to think and create and network. And what I see today is that people are so buried in their phones and social media that they don't actually, they almost like stifles creativity. But what I'm feeling as well on the backside of this is there is a sense of a comeback of creativity. There is, when I look at the retailer side, there is, and even from who the brand wants to sell to, they don't necessarily now want to sell to the really big guys. They want to sell to the, I would say, the communities of the retailers, i.e. the specialist stores, the ones that take care of their brands and that create things, and they want to play with things and build things and bring that physical entertainment and experience back. And I think that is part of where the future of fashion lays, is in the experience and creating something that is not just a product. And then actually also how you look at that. But I do think we're still at the standstill where how you shop, how you consume, it's not known. But I think in that sense, it's also something that fills me with excitement, because when the future is not clear, and it was for a long time, you know, like the department store model was very clear. To me, it's a dead concept. Doesn't mean that there's a new version of it and how you consume within that space. You know, the sort of standardized things of what's designer, what's contemporary, what's, you know, blah, 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 whatever terms there are. Again, you know, people don't shop that way anymore. So for me, the future is in innovation and thinking beyond the boundaries of what you got in front of you. And I see people do that. And I think a lot of successful brand that comes out today are the people that dares to think differently, that dares to say, I'm not going to sell in a seasonal value, or, I really get geeked out on, people like Borre who, in a sense, and it's funny that you said about the dustiness, but I think having a joy in craftsmanship again, and actually celebrating that, and because my husband is a pattern cutter, and I see this as well, and I keep hearing how much like that's a dying breed, and I think it's the same in where people don't want to do that anymore because they want to be front facing and they want to be seen, but actually that enjoyment in how beautiful things can be when you create for the sake of creating, and this man has that. And then I think, to be serious as a final note, I think also the other part that we really all need to consider, and I think this is a joy speaking to Danny and the hub and the designers that I met yesterday as well, is the consideration to the environment. I think for two reasons. I mean, the first one should really be because it comes from the heart. Like, we have this one planet, so we have to take care of that, and we have to think smartly and innovatively how we do that. And that doesn't mean that it could be about something that you wear forever and ever, right? That's also durable and sustainable. But more than anything, it's like, what's your responsibility? Because it's not just pushing it forward. But secondly, I think also for those of you who are thinking of starting a brand, have just started a brand, the reality is also that, legislation is coming fast and hard. So if you don't have that as a consideration, then, that's also where you're gonna hit a massive big wall. So just, if nothing else, consider that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ida. Oh, I want to thank you all, actually. Borre, Ida, Remco, thank you. Can you guys help me give them a big applause? Are there any questions? Yeah?
Hello, my name is Misha. I work in branding, and I was wondering, because I studied fashion as well, and I think it's very important to create a durable brand, obviously. But I feel like saying, okay, we all have to wait, be patient, maybe kind of goes a little against what we've been taught from not only movies or the culture of fashion, but also in the schools, where I feel like we are really told that we thrive when kind of we're pushed to play the game, we're pushed to do everything in high speed, and we're pushed to believe that there's this competitive nature. So do you feel like we should totally get off the bandwagon for the future and abandon the kind of idea that the competitive nature is in essence to the industry?
Can I answer? Well, I think that I don't think we're saying like, oh, we were doing everything very patient, because I think within our companies we produce a lot. Constantly exploring and trying and testing. There is a lot of activity there, but it does take time for these ideas to kind of evolve and to really reach the market. I think that's what I try to say with patience and time. That in our case, sometimes we develop a product and it comes out and we're super excited and it does nothing. And then, your reaction could be, it's not good, it's not working. But sometimes it really needs time before it finds the right path or people, and then it really can become something. So I think the patience, from my perspective, has to do more with trusting what you're doing, but creating a lot of things yourself. That there's no patience there, actually.
Thank you.
Okay. Can everybody still hear me? Yeah. I think we have time for one more question. Is there a question? No? Okay. Then I would say they will still be here. So make sure to connect with Borre, with Ida, or with Remco. And before I wrap up, I want to thank Nespresso for powering this talk, Amsterdam Fashion Week as well, my lovely guest. Borre, Ida, Remco, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.